Welcome, Simple Steppers. We're on episode 71 now, and today we get to do a special interview with Torie Bartee, who I will introduce in just a minute. But we've been talking about four habits the last couple of episodes, following along with Revelation Wellness Focus 40. And we've been talking about being in God's Word, drinking water, eating enough protein, and getting intentional movement. And I believe today's interview is just going to really build on that and really give you more of the practical of how that can play out in your life and how it's a process. It's not an overnight thing. So we'll be talking habits, motivation, systems, all the things that we love to talk about here at Simple Steps. So I have Torie Bartee here, and she and I met through my Revelation Wellness training. Well, I saw her on teaching videos, and I feel like I got to know her. But Torie is the RevWell TV manager with Revelation Wellness, and she's a lead instructor. And Torie coaches women to get healthy and find freedom through exercise, simple nutrition, I love that, and faith-based teachings. Her mission is to help women find joy in movement and break free from obsessing or neglecting their bodies by giving them the tools needed to reach their goals and help them renew their minds for kingdom work. And Torie wholeheartedly believes that health and fitness is less about rules and obligations and all about creating lifestyle changes. Her goal is to give women the tools they need to live healthy and free for the rest of their lives. So not just up until Quitter's Day, but
Right.
the rest of their lives. You'll want to follow Torie on Instagram and listen to her podcast. I love her Try This Tuesdays on Instagram. They're so fun to watch. She's humble and real and inspiring. So her podcast is called Rise with Torie, and her Instagram is Torie Lynn Fitness. And all the links will be in the show notes. So welcome, Torie.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so glad you're here. We're a few states away. We used to be many states away, but
Yeah,
now we're a few
that's true.
states away. Yeah.
Yeah.
But here we get
Yes.
to talk on this
Yeah.
platform. So, you and I have been touching base a little bit about your journey and how some of your systems and habits and lifestyle has kind of transformed over the years. And I would love to just hear a little, I think all of us would love to hear a little recap of that, or it would be a recap, I guess, for me, new for some of the listeners. But, there is that idea sometimes, I think, that people were just born with good habits. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not usually true. I haven't
No.
met anyone that's true. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
love to hear about that.
So I'm not going to tell the whole thing because I know it'd probably take up this whole podcast, but just a brief snippet of just my family's always been active, and my parents are pretty active. My mom does my programs now.
Mm-hmm.
My dad wakeboards and, rides BMX bike because my brother does extreme sports and stuff. And,
Okay.
they're just super active people. And so that got passed down to my brother and I of just being active. Like, they didn't force us to do it. They didn't make us do it. It was more just lead by example kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, always been active, but in, high school years, and you're getting, your body's changing and all this stuff's going on. I just fell into a pattern of the yo-yo dieting, because I had gained a little bit of weight. Your body's changing. And so I feel like back then, I feel so old when I say that, but back in the day, like in that time, it was talking so much about the fat-free diets and the snack wells and the sugar-free, but all that stuff was loaded with chemicals. So I feel like it just did a number on my body. I actually ended up becoming borderline hypothyroid, having borderline hypothyroidism. And now looking back, I'm like, man, it had to be what I was eating, because now I'm fine and I haven't had any issues since I've done a lifestyle change. But
Interesting.
But yeah, so I just fell into a pattern of trying to diet to lose weight, and then getting frustrated, and then binging, and then dieting and binging, and just that yo-yo back and forth.
Yeah.
And so I know I told you, I had dieted and done all this stuff when I went to college. It was just like, I don't even care anymore. And so I went from that obsession to neglecting of like, I don't even care, forget it.
Yeah.
And so, I put on even more weight in college and just was not comfortable in my body, but more of just the outward of just what I saw in the mirror, but also I didn't feel great either.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I got to get a hold of this. And then, nothing like a wedding, prepping for a wedding and all that to kind of motivate you a little bit.
Right.
And I was a believer and, love the Lord, believer most of my life, but I was not introduced to the ability to merge the two, right? It was
Mm-hmm.
always this, separate thing, like, well, God's over here and health and
Yeah.
fitness is over here, but it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no. God is in
Mm-hmm.
everything. Like he's in
Yeah.
it all.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't gotten to that point yet. So at this point, getting ready to get married and everything, I'm like dieting down, doing all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
lose the weight, have babies, gain the weight, lose the weight, gain the weight, lose the weight.
Yeah.
I had my third child and I knew we were done. And I was like, selfishly, vanity, vain wise, I was like, I'm going to get in the best shape of my life. And I did, but it was, it didn't come without sacrifice, and it didn't come without the Lord, like kind of getting a hold of me of like, hey,
Mm.
what's going on here?
Yeah.
And so eventually, there's more that goes into that of just, you diet too much and your metabolism, your
Mm-hmm.
body's going to say, no, we're done with this. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's what my body did. But
Yeah.
then the Lord got a hold of me and I went through Revelation Wellness instructor training at the end of 2019. And so
Okay.
I had become a trainer and a coach, but I felt like the Lord was like, I need to be in this. And so I did, when I
Mm-hmm.
first started and doing it on my own. I always say Jesus, fitness with Jesus sprinkled in. But then when
Mm-hmm.
I went through training, if you've been through training, just how God just like, just
Mm-hmm.
is like, all right, let's just strip everything away and then we're going to rebuild. And that's what
Yeah.
I feel like. I feel like I had almost like a rebuilding, not just
Mm-hmm.
of the fitness stuff, but my faith of just like God was getting to my heart and getting to, hey, the rules and all the things that you're trying to check the boxes. Let's get to the heart of the matter. And so,
Yeah.
my life changed after that, and I couldn't do training as a coach. I couldn't do that the same anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I do include that I am a faith-based trainer because I want people to know. Now, that doesn't mean if you're not of the faith, you can't do it. Absolutely not. You can totally.
Yeah.
But just know I'm going to talk about Jesus a little bit too. So
Yeah. Right.
there's a little bit of my story there. But yeah, I've been on the obsessed side and I've been on the neglect side. And I think people that don't know my story and my journey,
Mm-hmm.
that they might tend to think, oh, well, I'm pretty athletic. Just my whole
Yeah.
family is athletic, and just that is genetics, I would say.
Mm.
And so if people look at me and say, oh, well, you do these try this Tuesdays
Yeah.
and, you do all these crazy things, but my mindset has not always been in that healthy place. And of course, we're always still learning and growing,
Yeah.
sanctification. So
Yeah.
I have not arrived, but I
Yeah.
have been through those ups and downs and the dieting
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So I can
Yeah.
relate in that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I hear that like stripping away really happening
Yeah.
and then the rebuilding. I
Yes.
love that word. It's such a great word. And
Yeah.
just, thinking about you going through that and that rebuilding. I love it so much. So
Yeah.
good. Um, so I would imagine part of that rebuilding was um, I would imagine God getting a hold of your habits in
Oh,
there,
for
like
sure.
and we've talked about your mindset and things like that. So, um, what are your thoughts on that? And like the kind of the how does willpower, how does mindset, how do habits, like how do those
Yeah.
fit together, or do they fit together? What do you think?
Yeah. So I'll speak to where I am now, because back then, I didn't, I knew about healthy habits and stuff, but it was
Hmm.
not a it was not to where I believe in it now that one, I feel like one, obviously faith comes first, but I believe
Mm-hmm.
that the mind, like
Mm-hmm.
our
Mm-hmm.
mind and what we think
Mm-hmm.
is the direction that we will go. And so what we think, we tend to take action on
Yeah.
what we believe about ourselves. So if we think that we're a loser and we'll never get it right and we'll never succeed and I'll never be able to do this, then more than likely you probably won't, because you're telling yourself that.
Yeah.
But if we move towards, and I say that's oh shoot, what is it with the mindset, the growth mindset and the limited mindset. So that is
Mm-hmm.
more of the limited mindset, and this is not my teaching or my words, but
Yeah.
things that I've learned over time is that if we lean towards that limited mindset, then yeah, we are going to be limited.
Yeah.
Now obviously God gives us all talents and stuff that, you know, some will move forward in certain places more than others. I'm not a singer. I can't, you know, say, I believe I'm the best singer. That doesn't mean it's going to be true.
Right. Right.
But when it comes to what we tell ourselves, and coming from the God perspective of what does God say about me? Not what I see in the mirror, not the habits that I'm trying to do, but ultimately, first and foremost, what does God say about me? And my belief should come from who he says that I am. I'm a child of God.
Yeah.
I'm chosen. I am loved. If we're not getting that from the outside world, that can, you know, skew our mindset of ourselves. So anyways, back to habits. I believe that the mindset is the first thing of just what we think, what we fill our minds with. I love Romans. One of my life verses is Romans 12, 1-2, where it says, you know, offer your bodies a living sacrifice is verse 1, but verse 2, it says, don't conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind. That's where transformation comes from, is when we're reading God's word and letting him renew us and renew just those, letting go of those old beliefs. And then don't be conformed to the pattern. Like, don't do what the world is doing. We're not meant to be like the world and look like the world and talk like the world. And we're meant to be holy and set apart. So yeah, with habits, I've learned over time that that is the foundation. When you have these habits in place. So I know in Rev, they're doing the 4 habits. But for me, I'm actually going through a training right now, a very small, intimate group of people right now. And we're talking about 7 habits. And the 7 habits that I believe are just foundational that we will take for the rest. If we can brick by brick lay these down, and establish these as habits, like when the motivation fails, when the willpower is not there, we'll fall back on these habits. And so for me, those are obviously Word of God, first and foremost, nutrition, just eating whole, healthy foods. I don't believe in restriction. I believe in God gave us treats and stuff, and we need to enjoy that. But what's the majority of our nutrition, right? Drinking our water, I think that was a Rev 1. Eating your protein, that was a Rev 1. Daily movement, so moving our bodies, not just that designated workout, but throughout the day. We have become so sedentary as a society. And so we gotta get up and just move our bodies. Stress management. I feel like these last 2 people overlook so much is stress management. Now, we're going to have stress in life, and even working out is a stress. But how do we cope with the stress? How do we handle the stress? Where does our mind go when we have the stress? And then the last one is sleep. And so many people, you know, either don't think it's a priority, or like put that one last of like, you know, I've heard people say, you probably heard this too, where I'll sleep when I die. You know, just that like hustle, grind kind of mindset. It's like, hold on a second. Like, God made our bodies to sleep every single day to restore and recover, and our brains, you know, so so those ones are the ones that I try and focus on, foundational. Of course, there's other ones, but you know, I feel like those are the ones that, like, if we can make those a habit that we don't even think about it over time, that when like you said, the willpower, because I don't believe in willpower. I
Yeah.
believe in strength from him. Because that comes and goes. Motivation comes and goes. But if we're disciplined and we have those habits, that's what we'll fall back on.
Yeah, that's so good. I my a little just a tiny bit about my story with Revelation
Yeah.
Wellness is that when I went through a health coach training program prior to Revelation Wellness that was not faith-based, and I started health coaching, and I had a client who I just this is on me. I did not even share my faith with her. Now she might have known that I had faith, but I don't know. I didn't bring it in at all, you
Yeah.
know. And I felt very frustrated a lot of the times because I was trying to do it all in my own power. So I
Yeah.
just thought of that when you were talking about willpower. That was the big distinction I made, is that
Yeah.
oh, that's what was going on. I was relying on willpower. I was encouraging her essentially to rely on willpower, and
Yeah.
it was a frustrating process. And then I went through Revelation Wellness training and got more clear on that yeah, God is involved, wants to be involved, wants to be invited into everything, every area of our life, and so into my coaching.
Yeah.
And then I got another client right after that, and it was a very different process. It was very
Yeah.
I was like refreshing and life-giving, and it just
Yeah.
felt really good.
Yeah.
And it was so much less outcome based. I wasn't looking at the outcome, she wasn't looking at the outcome. It was more about the process and what she
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
learning along the way and what I was learning along the way, for sure. So
Yeah. When I feel like the world would say, if they're not a believer, right? And people would say, well, I can do all these healthy habits and I can, do this
yeah.
without God.
Hmm.
Sure. But then we know that even us as believers, we will tend to find other things to try and fill a void that only God can fill.
Yeah.
So when the willpower, or when us trying to do it on our own fails,
Yeah.
we're going to turn to something else, where as a
Hmm.
believer, we turn to him and
Yeah.
let him sustain us, let him give us peace that's everlasting. All these
Yeah.
other things that people, it won't last. Okay, you might
Right.
find peace for a moment, you might find courage for a moment, but it's not going to last because it's not sustaining like Christ is.
Yes. Yeah. So good. And I think about too, have you yourself experienced this, or had clients that you worked with that they may not even realize it, but they're relying on kind of a critical voice to keep them going? Like it's like tearing them down. So, okay, I'm going to work out to like appease that voice. Um, and I think about how God comes in and can transform that so much, like that,
For
like
sure.
just resting in his love versus relying on that critical voice to like just power through and
Yeah.
beat yourself up.
Even just your own, like, you can have critical voices that you've adopted from outside and then you take them on.
Yeah.
But even from yourself,
Yes.
I will say I'm a recovering people pleaser. I don't think
Okay.
I've fully arrived to not, but
Yeah.
man, everything, it was like, okay, started with my parents. What are my parents going to think? And doing
Yeah.
things to please them.
Yeah.
And that critical voice of, oh, well, they're not, this isn't up to their standard. Well, they're not going to approve of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it moves into, okay, you get a job and now you're trying to please everyone. And yes, there's a difference between excellence, right? We
Yeah.
want to bring our very best before God,
Yeah.
but it's not to people please everyone else because of the critical voice you're going to hear from them, or that you think, or yourself, of like, oh, I didn't do a good enough job, I didn't do this,
Yeah.
and all the things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've definitely had that voice that I've told myself.
Yeah.
They never put that on me. My parents
Right.
didn't put that on me. I put
Right.
it on myself
Yeah.
of, okay, what are they going to think? And I'll just
Yeah.
say I am a firstborn, so that
Okay.
I think comes with the
Okay.
territory. Yes, the firstborn territory of, oh, okay, I gotta do, I had the checklist, all those things, and I still
Yeah.
have to catch myself. Even at 40 years old, there are times
Uh-huh.
where I'm like thinking in my head, what would my parents think? I'm like,
Yeah.
stop it. I want to honor them. Absolutely.
Right.
But it's not, it should be to honor them and not to do a people pleasing, like, and that voice getting in your head. So
Yeah. Oh, that's a good
yeah.
point. That's a good point. So those 7 habits that you mentioned, the word, nutrition, water, protein, movement, stress management, and sleep, those are all part of your program or is that the program that you're currently doing with a small group, or is that the program that people can also get
Yeah, so
access to? Okay.
I've had different things. So right now I'm doing a 6 week. I just felt like the Lord was telling me to pull back from the big of, I had an app, kind of let that go,
Okay.
and to train more just discipleship. Discipleship this
Mm.
year has
Hmm.
been, God just put on my heart, and then especially with us moving across the country and
Yeah.
basically being on mission here
Yeah.
and, being missionaries,
Yep.
potential, church planners, future church planners.
Okay.
I just felt like the Lord was like, discipleship. You gotta disciple. You gotta just do life with people. And so
Yeah.
we're in a 6 week discipleship, fitness, kind of coaching group right now. And so
Uh-huh.
these are the habits that we're going through and we're trying to establish, and everyone's at different places. Some
Yeah.
people have most of them, but they just want to be in the Word of God more and stay consistent. And then some people are like, man, I might not even have 1 or 2 on here. And
Mm.
so,
Mm-hmm.
trying to reach each person and come alongside them and encourage them, but also, speak truth in love too. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's what I'm doing now. But I do have other programs and stuff that people can purchase and kind of do on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm always on like socials and stuff. Just, I love to connect with people.
Yeah.
So I try and answer every DM I get. Maybe
Yeah.
one or two has gone by, but I try my
Yeah.
best because I do believe in connection
Yeah.
and just the power of, just encouraging each other, opening up, being
Uh-huh.
vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So we'll have a link to one of your programs that you offer, right? That's what you
Yeah.
shared
Yeah.
with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we've talked about the habits and things like that and what can help with that, with with or actually what gets in the way, kind of the willpower, relying on willpower, and what can help, God. So
Yeah.
besides willpower, I guess, and kind of being stuck on relying on that, what are other obstacles that you see that people face?
Yeah. Biggest one is the mindset, just
Yeah.
what we tell ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
like I already talked about. Also just time,
Yeah.
and life situations and circumstances. So out of the, like I said, the group I'm doing now, very small group, I think there's 8 people in it.
Uh-huh.
And out of that group, everyone's at, 1, different places in their life, but 2, have different circumstances. As far as
Mm-hmm.
one lady has an autistic child and
Mm-hmm.
he needs her care,
Yeah.
like 24/7.
Yeah.
And so she has that obstacle for her of,
Uh-huh.
okay, how do I, in the mindset, because she feels guilty for taking care of herself,
Mm.
because she is his caregiver.
Yeah.
But as moms, we do this a lot. We put ourselves on the back burner and
Yes.
then our health takes a toll. I just want
Mm-hmm.
to say real quick that it is not selfish to take care of yourself.
Yes.
It is not selfish to take care of yourself. Now,
Yeah.
if that's even your thought, you're not being selfish. Like if you're even just
Yeah.
contemplating, is this selfish? You're not a selfish person.
Right.
Most selfish people aren't like reflecting in
Not
that
even
kind of way.
aware.
But
Yeah.
yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not selfish to take care of yourself, but that's her own personal struggle. Then we have someone else in the group that works full time and it's hard she's at a desk. So it's hard for her
Mm.
to get in that daily movement.
Yeah.
And so I just told her, focus on just getting up every 30 minutes to an hour, setting a timer, and just move your body, walk around your office, or just do some squats at your desk,
Yeah.
just getting some blood flow to your body, but also your brain, right? You'll be a little bit more
Yeah.
productive working too.
Yeah.
And then we have
Hmm.
people who are retired that, they're just trying to better their lives for the rest of their lives. And so everyone's at different places, so I feel like we all will have different obstacles that come up.
Yeah.
But it goes back to mindset and what we believe about God and ourselves
Yeah.
and how we will take those steps forward based off of those beliefs.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned time as one of the obstacles that you see,
Yeah.
and that's been coming up a lot for me lately, talking to people, and I get it. I do get it. At the same time, I think about, we're all given 24, we're each given 24 hours in a day. That's one thing that like isn't different for each of us. We're all
Yeah.
given the same amount of, we have different things that need to fill that time and everything. But I also know just a little bit about you that you have a lot of different hats maybe that you wear. You're wearing a hat
Hmm.
today.
I know. I like to wear my hats.
I love hats too. Like homeschool mom, working for Revelation Wellness, your
Yeah. Yeah.
own ministry stuff, wife, all the things. So, what does that look like for you? Like how do you do that, with your
Yeah.
time and working in your habits and taking good care of yourself and all of that?
Yeah, for sure. I will say, so when I got married and had kids, I was pretty much a stay-at-home mom. I
Uh-huh.
could always find things that I could work from home. And so I
Okay.
was a photographer for a little bit.
Okay.
I made stuff for Etsy, like hair
Okay.
bows and jewelry and stuff. I did that for a little bit. But this last year, right before we moved, I actually worked at our church.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I had to go into an office in a really long time. And it was hard.
Oh
It was
yeah.
so hard. And I was like, Lord, I feel like you gave me this position. One, now knowing what we ended up doing anyways, like we're church planners. So
Yeah.
one, I feel like it was that, but two, to give me a better understanding for those who work outside the home and or
Mm-hmm.
people who don't have a lot of time. So in that, I really had to do a lot of um, planning and
Mm-hmm.
like looking at my calendar and saying, okay, what does my day look like? How can I prep now to set myself up for better success tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
I can't like I can be a on the fly type person, like
Yeah.
we'll figure it out. Like I'm not a type A. There are things that I can be a little bit, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty much a type B person where I'm like, we'll figure it out. It's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But that really woke me up to I couldn't be like that because if I did, I
Mm.
would go for the
Mm.
unhealthy thing, the quickest thing, or if I didn't, like movement wise, if I didn't plan it or schedule it, it wouldn't get done,
Yeah.
especially the movement throughout the day. I was sitting at a desk. I was the discipleship coordinator in our church, and
Okay.
I sat a lot. And
Mm.
I could tell the first like month or two, I was like, oh, I used to be like, I'd be filming every day. I'd be like
Mm.
constantly active. And to go from that to like sedentary, my
Yeah.
body was like, what is going on? So I really had to sit down and have a hard conversation and pray about it. Like, God, okay, what does this look
Yeah.
like? Because I got to practice what I preach, right? But
Mm-hmm.
also, I know it's good for me.
Yeah.
And so the planning thing is huge. Just
Mm.
planning, even if I didn't meal prep, I'd plan, okay, what am I bringing for lunch this week? Or,
Yeah.
what time, like I always say, schedule your workout like
Yeah.
a doctor's appointment. This is a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
non-negotiable. And so I'm going to look at my calendar and see, okay, well, I don't go into work till a little bit later tomorrow. So I'm going to get it in before I go to work. Or, oh, I have Bible study this day and then work or whatever it was. Like maybe that's my rest day.
Okay.
Okay. Or if every day is the same, like, okay, what can I do? I had a client who would work out on her lunch break.
Uh-huh.
She had an hour lunch break and she would bring her clothes. She would
Yeah.
go to the gym right down the street and then come back
Mm-hmm.
and finish up her work. So, for everyone, it's going to be a little bit different, but
Right.
definitely takes sitting down, looking at your schedule, and
Yeah.
planning it out. If you're like me and you're not a planner, we got to suck it up. We got to do the hard thing. We got to
I
do the
love that.
hard thing and
Yeah.
say, okay, if I'm committed to this, if I'm committed to what God has called me to, of taking care of this temple He's given me,
Yeah.
I gotta plan it. I gotta figure out how can I make this work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. And that's funny because I guess I assumed you were more of a type A person, but I
No,
love hearing
ma'am.
you say that. That's not my natural, but I had to. I had
Yeah,
to. And
yeah, yeah,
your actions, you changed your actions to be planning and, scheduling and things like that to match what you
yeah.
valued.
Yeah.
You
And
value
it's
your health.
uncomfortable. And that's like
Yeah,
something that I'm really, really been leaning into and pressing into, especially with my clients or just even on social media and stuff, is we have to get
yeah.
uncomfortable. We can't live this cushy, um,
Hmm.
our flesh, right? It's our
Yeah,
flesh that wants to stay in that state.
yeah,
But we got to get uncomfortable because God does not call us to live in that. Now, of course, like, no, he doesn't want us to be miserable by any
yeah.
means, but we grow. We know that when there is suffering, when there's uncomfort,
Hmm.
and my mind always goes to a workout because that's just the
Hmm.
space I'm in.
Yeah,
But when you're working out and it's hard and it's
yeah,
uncomfortable, but your brain is changing, your
yeah,
body is changing and growing and adapting, you're tearing down your muscles and they grow back stronger. We're
yeah,
getting stronger because of that discomfort. So,
yeah.
yeah, for me,
Hmm.
absolutely having to plan homeschooling.
Hmm.
Let me just tell you, that has been an uncomfortable thing that I swore I would never homeschool. And the
Same
Lord
here.
said, yes, the Lord said, I will have you promising that you will never promise like you promised before. Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Never tell God you will not do something because he
right.
will be like,
Oh my gosh,
who's in control here?
that is so true. It's so
But yeah,
true.
it's the same thing, that it's
Mhm.
been super uncomfortable. And
Mhm.
even there are days where I'm like, am I failing?
Yeah.
Am I, you know what I mean? You just
Yeah.
doubt yourself, but you got to come back to the truth. You got to
Yeah.
come back to him, pray about
Mhm.
it, get in that
Mhm.
secret place. Lord, okay, you've called me to this. You're going to equip me. You're going to
Yeah.
equip them. I'm going to lean on you, just like we said
Mhm.
before, not my own strength to try and
Yes.
teach these crazy kids. I'm going to lean on you, Lord. But
Right.
yeah, we got to get uncomfortable. We got to do the
Mhm.
uncomfortable things, the hard things
Mhm.
that maybe
Mhm.
aren't our bend, maybe
Mhm.
don't come natural to us.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Yeah. Um, I I'm gonna maybe have you get uncomfortable because I'm gonna ask you
Uh,
something that we didn't really talk about, but I mean, it's
uh-oh.
basically what we've been talking about. So I think it'll be
Oh.
okay. Yeah, she's getting uncomfortable.
Ooh, we always say get comfortable getting uncomfortable. So
Right?
here
I
we
love
go.
that. I love that. Yeah, and you're gonna be like, oh, that was it? Okay, that's no big deal. So,
Okay.
so just thinking about like how we always end our episodes with two simple steps. And so I'm thinking
Mm,
about the people that are listening that are in that place of like my time. There's certain parts of my day that I don't want to give up. I don't want to get up
mm,
any earlier. I don't want to go to bed any earlier. I don't want to do that with my time. I don't want to stop this thing that's taking up my time. So, um,
mm,
what would you, how might you talk to someone, or what might you encourage them to do? Some simple steps, maybe, or maybe you
mm.
just kind of think that through, talk that through.
So my initial reaction is when we say, and I do this all the time, I don't want to,
Mm-hmm.
typically is our flesh
Yeah.
like pushing against the spirit of,
Mm,
I know what I'm called to do, or I know where God's leading me. I don't
yeah.
want to should on anyone and say you should do, but
Right.
God calling us to something, but
Yeah.
I don't want to. And that's that flesh pushing back of,
Yeah.
I mean, I just went through this morning. I went for a run. I told you it was
Yeah.
19 degrees,
Ooh.
Florida girl here. I'm like, no, I do not want to.
Right.
That was my flesh. Like, I'd rather stay in the warm house and stay cozy but I have to die to my flesh. We're supposed
Mm.
to die to our flesh to pursue him and for him and what he's leading us to. Now, yes, a workout like that just seems, it's not silly, but there might be those of us who have to die to our flesh as saying, I don't want to do this,
Yeah.
but God's been calling you to it and saying, but daughter, son, I need you to do this. You got to do this to better your health, or to grow your mind, or to connect with your family. Or I have a friend who has been wrestling with being called to foster care.
Okay.
She doesn't want to.
Yeah.
But the Lord is calling her, and she's going to have to die to her flesh and say, okay, God, I'm going to sacrifice. I'm going to suffer. I'm going to die to my flesh right now for something even greater that I don't even know is on the other side of this. It was the same with us moving. Heck no, I did not want to move here.
Right.
We live in Utah, if I didn't say that. I did not want to move here because it's cold and it's unfamiliar. But man, and here's the thing I learned. Let me just share this real quick too, and I'll stop rambling. But
no, you're good.
I've learned over the past couple years that it's okay to wrestle with God. It's okay to bring the things that we don't want to do and say, I'm laying this out here before you, God. I don't want to do this. I don't want to. And I guess maybe because of my people-pleasing nature, it's always been, okay, just be obedient. Just follow God. Don't push back. But when God called us to move here and I wrestled with him, my faith grew deeper because I saw him in a different light, and I was able to wrestle with him and not just go to a friend or go to, and of course I still went to like our pastor and trusted people to talk about stuff, but I allowed myself to wrestle with God and bring those things before him and say, I do not want to. I don't want to. And then I stood there for a little bit, for maybe a couple months. I was like, nope, I don't want to. I'm not doing it. But then I prayed. I'm like, God, I know you're calling me. I know you're calling me to do this. What does that look like? You know, get to my heart of the matter, seeking him, right? Seek first the kingdom of God. So seeking him above all things. And eventually in that wrestling, you know, many things came up where he just confirmed it over and over, and he blessed me. And through that, I feel like he blessed other people too. And so now I always say, listen, I hope that God uses our story and that getting uncomfortable, the thing that you don't want to do, you know, God uses us to show people that when you say yes to God, like, it's not always going to be pretty, and it might not even have this fairy tale ending, but God grows our faith and strengthens us, and our just love and dependency on him grows even deeper. And to me, like, that is worth everything. Every time we sing like any song about God being worthy, I lose it, because I'm like, God, you are worthy. You are worthy of me denying myself to follow you. Even if I don't get anything out of this, even if nothing changes, he's still worthy of our yes and us getting uncomfortable.
Ooh, that's so good. I got goosebumps. So good. I was thinking
Preacher
about
Tori's coming out.
that. I did totally love it so much. I was thinking about that idea of like that being a step of dying to flesh and pursuing him and wrestling with God. And you said what that looked like for you. It sounded like, but maybe there's something else. So go ahead and say it. But it sounded like you just went to him with, I don't want to. God, I don't want to. Like you just approached him and brought your words to him and fears.
Being
maybe.
honest. Being honest before him. And some of us, that might come easier than others, but sometimes I get in the habit of, oh, well, God already knows. You know what I mean? Like, even when I pray, sometimes I'm like, oh, God, you already know. You already know. But when we come before him and use our words, and, you know, the Spirit can intercede for us. What is the scripture where it says, ask, seek, and knock, and it will be given unto you? Now, that's not saying that he's going to give us everything that we want.
Right.
But what ends up happening is our heart changes and our desires change, and he gives us the things that we need, not necessarily what we want. And so what we want and we need are a lot of times very, very different things.
Right.
I know, I'm sure you and probably listeners could say, man, if God gave me everything I wanted throughout my life, woo, I'd be
trouble.
exactly.
Trouble. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So going to him and just being honest with him, and
Mm-hmm.
and then it sounds like, because you didn't say, you said you did that for a while, so it wasn't just a one time. So waiting, would that be maybe
Yep.
a second part
Waiting.
of that, is
Yep.
waiting on
Waiting
him?
for sure. So
Mm-hmm.
patient. So I know you said you asked, I know I got preaching there and I forgot about the, what you asked me, the simple steps, but definitely the patience. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
know people say don't
Yeah.
pray for patience because God will
Yeah.
give you opportunities to practice it.
Uh-huh.
But instead of praying for patience, pray for diligence and
Mm.
endurance.
Mm.
The endurance to be able to keep moving forward, to keep day after day, right? So something I always try and teach is just one day at a time,
Yeah.
one step at a time.
Yep.
Don't try and change everything. Even with maybe 4 habits seems small,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe that seems overwhelming. And so
Yeah.
pick
Yep.
one, and one step at a time, work on that one for the next 21 days, a
Yep.
month. What do they say? 21 days for habit and 60 days for a lifestyle, I think.
Yeah. Something
But
like that.
man, that
Yeah.
we can fall off like that too.
Yeah.
So,
Uh-huh.
day by day, little bit by little bit, I give my clients, it's called a health assessment, and I have them go through areas of their life and they kind of rate it.
Yeah.
It's dropping the pin. It's not judging. It's not trying to
Yeah.
shame yourself,
Yeah.
but dropping the pin and saying, okay, out of these 5 to 7 areas, because some of them are combined, right? So out of
Okay.
these 5 to 7 areas, where's the area that I should probably focus my attention on for the next 6 weeks, 40 days, whatever that is?
Yeah.
And so I have them rate on a scale of 1 to 5, 5
Uh-huh.
being, I'm crushing it, this is
Mm-hmm.
already a habit kind of thing. 1
Yeah.
being, ooh, I do not do that.
Yeah.
And so I have them rate, and then at the end, they look back at it and say, what rated the lowest,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe what 2 areas rated the lowest.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones that I have them try and focus on.
Yeah.
So that way they don't get too overwhelmed. And I always say,
Yes.
if the lowest for you was Bible, let's get
Do
there
it.
first.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
get there first. Your quiet
Uh-huh.
time, just being
Uh-huh.
in the Word.
Yep.
But say, water is your lowest. Okay, for the
Uh-huh.
next 6 weeks, let's focus on that habit of trying to drink more water. Set
Yeah.
timers, alarms. Have your water already in your fridge. Have your
Yes.
different, or take it with you to work. Have them already filled, so you don't have
Mm-hmm.
to refill it. Like, just take
Yes.
that
Uh-huh.
goes into the planning thing. Like, take
Yes.
one step out of it. How can I make this easier for myself to achieve the goal that I'm trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Nutrition, right? We talked about having that stuff planned out ahead of time.
Yeah.
So if that's, anyone listening,
Mm-hmm.
one thing at a time. We
Yeah.
have a lifetime to work on this,
Yeah.
and we want it to be habits that we take through our lifetime, and not just, okay, 40 days is over and then,
Yeah.
hey, going back to how it was before.
Yeah. 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 Oh, that's good. I always tell the story to my clients about how, when I heard about Whole30, and I have nothing against Whole30, I think it's great, but I was so confused about it. Like, well, so at the end of 30 days, you just, what then?
Yeah,
Like, what
that's
then? And
true. Yeah.
yeah. And so I totally buy into and teach about, the lifelong habits like you talk
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
Yep.
So I've got, what can be sometimes a funny question for you, but sometimes it's just it's been a part of your life for so long kind of question. So that's what we
Yeah.
have next. So what habit have you done so long, Tori, that you don't even remember when or how it started?
Yeah. Honestly, so I told you beforehand that I've been a believer most of my life. I didn't
Yeah.
fully, I would say, surrender, or I kind of saw God as not genie in the sky. How do you explain that? Like just checking the boxes, right? Like a
Okay.
God that was looking down on you, and
Yeah.
and that goes back to my people pleasing nature. But
Yeah.
just I didn't see it as a relationship. I saw
Okay.
it as checking the boxes. So I've been a believer most of my life, and so
Yeah.
that's what was like, man, I can't remember when the habit of being in the Word, when I even started that. Maybe
Okay.
high school, because that's when my faith started to grow, and then
Yeah.
college wasn't when I fully surrendered.
Uh-huh.
But that's not to say that I haven't had seasons where I'm not in the Word, right? I can
Uh-huh.
remember having babies and,
Yeah.
just times in my life where I did not even open the Word for, a few days, weeks at a time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that would probably be the main one.
Okay.
You know, I love water, so I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I've been a big water drinker, so that might
Uh-huh.
just be something I've done naturally.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would
Mm-hmm.
say that, and I don't say that to sound like holier than that, like this super spiritual, but that was the one that I'm like, out of those habits, the 7 habits that I try and follow and do, I'm like, man, I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember. That's the
Mm-hmm.
one I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember when I started,
Yeah.
being consistent in it.
So I think that's an encouragement to like parents that are listening that have always, encouraged, like maybe they've been believers for a long time, so their kids have grown up in their household. So I think that's an encouragement. I don't think and you don't sound holier than thou to me. It's an encouragement that, yeah, I
Well,
love thinking about that.
and I love that you said that, because some people do beat themselves up and say, "Well, I
Mm,
I didn't grow up in a Christian home, and so I don't have that foundation." But
yeah,
man, what a beautiful blessing to be able to do that for our own kids, or if you became a believer later in life, your
yeah,
grandkids, or
yeah,
a mentor, or
yep,
pouring into other people. Like, we're not
yep,
meant to keep it to ourselves, and so nothing is wasted. And so, yeah, maybe you didn't come to Christ later, but it's never too late to pour into other people, or to
yeah,
encourage other people, or to mentor, or whatever it is. We can
yeah.
always start, later in life, and start
Totally.
doing that stuff.
Totally. I remember being a new believer in my early 20s and I had quite the story I felt like to tell, and being in a group where a woman was like, well, like you, like saying, I don't remember ever not believing. And that was an encouragement to me then. I wasn't a mom, wasn't even married, and thinking, that's what I want. That's what I want for my
Yes.
family. So it's
Yeah.
an encouragement.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and then what's your favorite life-giving habit? And you just gave 2 really great life-giving habits, being in the Word and drinking water. But there's
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah. So, obviously being in the Word, like that's the bread of life, right?
Yeah,
So
totally.
obviously being in the Word. But
Hmm.
I will say that I think as we get older, we
Hmm.
tend to get serious, and we tend to,
Mm.
we don't have as much fun like we
Yeah.
did when we were kids. And so I'm a big believer
Hmm.
in laughing and having
Yeah.
fun and being silly. I could just think my kids probably think I am the most ridiculous person ever. But this morning I got done with my run and I had my neck gaiter on. And so we're starting schoolwork, and and I'm still like, I'm getting cold because I'm a little sweaty and stuff. So I
Yeah.
pulled my neck gaiter like up over my head, and it was like, and they're just looking like, and then I started making weird faces to them, and I'm like, and they're like, stop. So
Yeah.
just like that, just
Just
like,
fun.
listen, yes, just have fun. And we know that that joy comes from the Lord. But
Hmm.
sometimes we have to muster up a little bit of, like, put on a song, have a dance
Yeah.
party, have a friend that you like to laugh with. And
Yeah.
there's a couple clean comedians that I listen to that
Hmm.
just, like, it makes me laugh. And so I'll share
Yeah.
it with a friend and be like, oh my gosh, you gotta listen to this, or
Right.
whatever, just having fun, looking for
Yeah.
ways to just be a kid again, and not be afraid of looking a little silly and
Yeah.
goofy. And
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like as I get older too, I'm like, I don't care. I
Right.
don't care if I look stupid, or it's like,
Right.
whatever.
That's what I
So
see in your Try This Tuesdays. That's what I take away from that. Like I'm always honestly very impressed too. But at the same time, I'm like, that's so cool that she doesn't just show her nailing it. Tori shows the
the
process of getting
yeah.
there. And sometimes you don't get it exactly like the person.
Yep. And I
Yeah.
try to show that too of
Hmm.
like, you know, as a people pleaser, I'd say maybe even a little bit of perfectionism.
Uh-huh.
Like I said, I am more type B, so I don't get hung up on that. But there are
Yeah.
times where I'm like, well, I don't want it to look like blah, 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 you know?
Yeah.
And so that was something that, like, as I've grown and stuff, but just
Hmm.
showing up on social media, I'm like,
Yeah.
I want people to know that no, I don't always get it right. I don't
Yeah.
always succeed.
Yeah.
I am not perfect, or
Yeah.
fill in the blank, you know. So I try
Yeah.
and be as real as possible. And
Yeah.
um,
That's what
yeah,
I
even though I'm
see.
trying all these crazy things. So, and normally I don't test it beforehand. I just do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's why sometimes it's a fail, because I did not test it and I'm like, I don't know. And sometimes I'm overconfident and I'm like, oh, I could get that easy. And
Yeah.
then I struggle and I'm like, oh,
Oh.
whoops.
Oh, that's so fun. I love that life-giving habit of just playing and having fun and laughing. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, Tori, thank you so much for being here. This has been great just talking to you. I feel like we could make like 3 episodes or something.
Oh, yeah, for
Just
sure.
keep going. Just keep going. But yeah, I really
Yes.
appreciate this time
Thank
with
you for
you.
having me. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
Thank you. Okay, listeners, we will see you next week. Thanks for listening. We are so glad you joined us today, and we hope we've inspired you to take that one simple step for the whole you.
And if you've enjoyed this podcast, would you help us spread the word by passing it on to your friends and family, and also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Instagram, and those links are in the show notes. And as always, consult your healthcare provider before implementing any major exercise or diet changes. We hope to see you next week. Bye.